On a hot afternoon in August of 2007, a man named Zheng Yujiang stood on the bank of the Yangtze River and watched something rise out of the water that, by every official record on Earth, should not have been there. It was pale, almost white. It surfaced, arced, and vanished. He fumbled for his camera and started filming a shape nearly 1,000 meters away. When scientists in Wuhan studied that footage, one of them said it might be a Baiji, the goddess of the Yangtze, an animal that had moved through this river for around 20 million years. There was only one problem. Just months before that video, those same scientists had told the world the Baiji was gone. The first dolphin humanity had ever erased from the planet. Gone in every way that mattered. Except, strangely, on paper. So what was the white shape in the water? And could it somehow still be down there in the dark? This story doesn't begin with a grainy video. It begins millions of years before anyone held a camera. The Yangtze is the longest river in Asia, stretching more than 6,000 kilometers from the mountains to the East China Sea. And for around 20 million years, one animal called it home and almost nowhere else. The Baiji. A pale, blue-grey river dolphin growing up to around 2.5 meters long with a white belly, a long, slender beak that curved gently upward, and a small, gentle face. Now picture the world it lived in. The Yangtze is thick with silt. Down there you can barely see your own beak in front of you. So, over those millions of years, the Baiji did something remarkable. It nearly gave up on its eyes. Its eyes shrank and sat high on its head, almost useless in the gloom. Instead, it learned to see with sound. It fired clicks into the darkness and listened to the echoes coming back, building a picture of the riverbed, the fish, the world, out of nothing but returning sound. It was, in a very real sense, a creature that swam blind through a river it knew by heart. The people who lived along the water gave it a name that tells you everything about how they saw it: the goddess of the Yangtze. In the old stories, she was a young woman who threw herself into the river to escape a cruel stepfather, and rose again as a dolphin. To the fishermen and boatmen who shared her water, she was a sign of peace, of protection, and of good fortune. They had a second name for her too. When she cruised just beneath the surface, the little fin on her back would slice up through the water like a tiny pale flag. So they called her the white flag dolphin. Even the scientific name carries the same quiet poetry. The genus means left behind. The species means flag bearer. A flag bearer left behind. We named her without quite realizing it, after exactly what she would become, and here is the part that's easy to miss. The Baiji wasn't just rare, it was the last branch of an entire family tree. It had split from all other dolphins roughly 20 million years ago and survived alone as the only member of its family left alive. To lose the Baiji wasn't to lose one animal. It was to lose a whole lineage that ran back further than we can really imagine. For most of that time, the goddess had the river to herself. That was about to change. In the 1950s, there were thought to be around 6,000 Baiji in the river. Not a huge number, but a living, breeding population. A goddess in good health. Then China began to change faster than almost any nation in history. The Yangtze stopped being a river that people lived beside and became a machine that people used. A highway, a power source, and a drain. And for an animal that navigates entirely by sound, that was a quiet catastrophe. The river filled with engines. Tens of thousands of boats, all roaring through the water. Imagine trying to listen for a whisper in a room full of jet engines. That was the Baiji's world now. The sense it had spent 20 million years perfecting was being drowned out. Then came the fishing. Not hunting the dolphins on purpose, mostly. Something almost worse. The Baiji kept blundering into gear meant for fish. Walls of rolling hooks. Nets. And in some places, fishermen ran electric current through the water to stun their catch, killing anything that swam too close. A blind animal, deafened by engines, drifting into hooks it could no longer hear coming. Then we cut the river itself into pieces. Great dams rose across the Yangtze, including the largest the world had ever built. The dams split the dolphins into smaller and smaller groups, choked off the flow of fish they fed on, and reshaped the only home they had ever known. The numbers tell the story with brutal speed. around 6,000 in the 50s, about 400 by the start of the 1980s. And by 1997, when researchers ran a full search of the river, they could find just 13. 13, in a river more than 6,000 kilometers long. There was one last hope, and his name was Qiqi. In 1980, a fisherman pulled an injured young Baiji from Dongting Lake, torn up by fishing hooks. Scientists nursed him back to health and named him Qiqi. He would live in a pool at the institute in Wuhan for 22 years, the most studied Baiji who ever lived, and slowly, the only one anyone could reliably find at all. Think about what that means for a moment. For more than 2 decades, Qiqi swam his slow circles in a tank, clicking into the walls of a world that clicked nothing back. Researchers came to know his every habit, his breathing, and his moods. He was gentle, he was patient, and he was, without anyone being able to say it out loud, a museum exhibit for a species that was disappearing in real time, just beyond the building's walls. They tried to give him a mate. In the mid-1990s, they captured a female to start a breeding program, the last desperate idea to save the species. She died within months before the two could ever produce a calf. And that was the warning sign written in plain sight, the one the world was too slow to read. On the 14th of July, 2002, Qiqi died. He was somewhere around his mid-20s. He had spent more than 2 decades as the gentle, swimming evidence that his kind still existed. And when he was gone, there was no Baiji left that anyone could point to and say with certainty that one is alive. The goddess had not been seen for sure in the wild for years. Now the search would have to settle it. Was she gone or just hiding? In late 2006, a team set out to answer that question once and for all. It was funded by a Swiss businessman, August Pfluger, and led on the science by a British zoologist named Samuel Turvey, with researchers from around the world. This was not a casual look. Around 30 researchers boarded 2 boats and swept the dolphin's entire historical range, from Yichang all the way down to Shanghai, and then turned around and did it again. 2 passes, 6 weeks on the water. And they didn't just watch the surface. They listened. They dragged hydrophones through the water, underwater microphones tuned to catch the Baiji's clicks, the very sounds it used to see. If a single Baiji had passed nearby and made a sound, they had a real chance of hearing it. Day after day, they searched. They scanned the banks. They listened to the dark water. And here is the detail that everyone missed in the rush to call it a tragedy. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was just nothing. No shape on the surface. No click in the headphones. For 6 weeks across the whole river, the goddess of the Yangtze did not answer. If a creature vanishing without a sound is the kind of story that stays with you, subscribe and stick around. This channel exists to follow the animals that slipped through our fingers and the ones we still have time to save. Now, back to the silence on the river. While the team had been straining to hear a single click, the truth had been settling over them slowly, like the river mist. On the 13th of December 2006, they said the words out loud. The Baiji was, in their assessment, functionally extinct. Now that phrase matters, and it's gentler than it sounds, and crueler at the same time. Functionally extinct doesn't quite mean every last one is dead. It means that even if a few stragglers are still out there, there are too few of them, too scattered ever to find each other and breed. The species is finished, even if the final individuals are still drawing breath. A goddess on life support in a river that no longer had room for her. And that gave the Baiji a terrible distinction. It became, in all likelihood, the first dolphin ever driven to extinction by human beings. Not by an asteroid, not by an ice age, but by us. By our boats, hooks, dams, and noise. And with it went that entire family tree, 20 million years of evolution, gone in a span of about 50 years. The story should end there. A clean, devastating, full stop. Except the river wasn't quite ready to give a clean answer. Because just 8 months after the world said goodbye, we're back on that riverbank with Zeng Yujiang and his camera, watching a pale shape roll through the water near Tongling. The footage reached the scientists in Wuhan, and one researcher, Wang Kexiong, looked at that pale animal and said it might be a Baiji. You can imagine what that did. A creature declared gone, surfacing on tape months later, filmed by an ordinary man who simply happened to be looking at the right patch of water. But the same scientists who wanted to believe it were the ones who held the line. The video was shot from nearly 1,000 meters away. It was blurry, and the Yangtze still holds another animal, the finless porpoise, which can look like a smudge of grey from that distance. Wang Ding, the country's leading Baiji expert, said he simply couldn't be sure. The colour and the movement looked promising. The proof did not exist. And then it kept happening. A few years later, in 2016, a group of amateur conservationists swore they watched a Baiji leap from the river near Wuhu. One of them said no other creature in the Yangtze could jump like that. Then more reports surfaced near Tongling in 2018, and again in 2024, each time a pale shape, a long beak, a grainy phone video, a flicker of hope. And every single time the expert said the same careful, painful thing. Maybe. But the footage is too blurry or the distance is too great. We cannot confirm it. Not one of these sightings has ever been verified. And here is the strange, very human part. The people doing the searching are not cranks. Some are fishermen who grew up on this river and swear they know the goddess when they see her. Some are the very scientists who declared her gone and who have admitted they would give almost anything to be proven wrong. One of the men who led the search said it plainly. He would love more than almost anything for there to be real proof the Baiji survived. He just refuses to call a pale smudge at 1,000 meters proof. That tension between the heart that wants to believe and the mind that demands evidence is the whole story of the Baiji's afterlife, which leaves us in a strange and haunting place. The Baiji has become a ghost, always a pale shape at a distance, always just out of focus, always gone again before anyone can be sure it was ever there. So we come back to the question we started with: could the Baiji still be alive, right now, somewhere in that river? Let's be honest about what the science says, because this channel owes you that. A Baiji lived around 24 years. The last animal anyone could verify was seen back in 2002. That means almost any Baiji alive then would, by now, have reached the very end of a natural life. And with no breeding population, no calves, no pairs finding each other in that vast river, the cold arithmetic points one way. The goddess is, almost certainly, gone. And yet, this is a river more than 6,000 kilometers long, full of side channels and murky backwaters where a shy, quiet animal could slip past two boats and a row of microphones. Scientists searched, and searched well. But as one of them put it, absence of evidence is not quite the same thing as evidence of absence. That's why, even now, the official record refuses to write the final word. The Baiji is not formally listed as extinct. It sits in a category called possibly extinct, that thin, flickering space between gone and not quite proven gone. Hope, reduced to a technicality. But the Baiji left us something. In the same river swims its last neighbour, the Yangtze finless porpoise, the only freshwater cetacean China has left. Its numbers are low. Its river is the same crowded, noisy water that swallowed the goddess. The difference is, this time we know exactly how the story can end. And this time we still have a chance to write a different one. So, picture that riverbank one more time. A man with a camera, a pale shape in the water, and a question nobody can quite answer. Maybe it was a trick of the light. Maybe it was the last finless porpoise of the day. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the goddess of the Yangtze surfacing one final time to remind us she had ever been there at all. If you want to know which animal we lost next and which one we might still save, that story is waiting on the screen right now. The river keeps its secrets. We don't have to.